Hello everyone, welcome to another VWO webinar. My name is Utkarsh Rai and I take up growth marketing initiatives at VWO. I'll be moderating today's session. For this session, we're excited to host Mr. Elliot Moore, who is joining us from New York. Elliot take up marketing for AdRoll. AdRoll is a renowned growth platform which helps over 37,000 brands across the globe with marketing and retargeting ads. We welcome you, Elliot. In this session, we are discussing ways to improve visibility around your paid marketing efforts. So for any questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter with today's hashtag AskVWO. You can also use the GoToWebinar's question widget to ask us anything. We'll take your questions at the end of the session. For your convenience, we're recording this session and we'll share the webinar resources with you after the session. So let's begin. I would request Elliot to take it over from here. Elliot, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining today. Again, my name is Elliot Moore. I'm a marketing manager here for AdRoll. And I'm really excited to be presenting to you on this topic, which is essentially going to be everything to do with attribution. So here you can see one of the more obvious statements I think I've ever put on a presentation, but the fact is that digital marketing space continues to evolve and has over time led to the market being reliant on certain metrics and data points within their different marketing stack that aren't necessarily the same as they were a few years ago. And this is particularly true in the case of attribution, where the reliance on legacy ways of understanding marketing channel activity has led to really major gaps in the way that marketers sometimes think about their entire customer journey. And what I mean by this really is that, just gonna go back to presentation. Okay, so what I mean by this really is that people aren't shopping in the way they used to, especially when it comes down to digital marketing. Originally, when people were measuring their marketing efforts online, they used to base it off of a linear click-based model. And that's just because that's how people were shopping originally, right? They'd see something on the TV, they'd look at it in their newspaper, and then they'd buy it by searching on Google, where you're supposed to click. However, this really isn't the case anymore. The customer journey has become a lot more complex, and there are a lot of different ways to help marketers better understand how their dollars are being spent online than by looking at just a linear click-based attribution model. And there are a few reasons for this, right? One of the big ones is that clickers aren't really buyers, right? Something that we've noticed here is that 4% of all users click on ads, at least the ones that we've been running. That means 96% of people aren't even going to click. Beyond that, 5.5 times the top quartile of clickers is 5.5 times more expensive than less clicky users. That means you're spending a lot more money to attract these users to click on your ads than you would if you were expanding your model outside of just a click-based, attribution. And then lastly, we noticed that almost a quarter of incremental revenue is misattributed on a last click model. So that incremental revenue would be any sales that you are adding to your business's bottom line that wouldn't have come from you running ads online. So you're really, discounting almost a quarter of that complete traffic there. So why does last click not really tell the whole story? Most conversions are the result of many, many different touches, right? I think we all know the stat that it takes, something like 6 or 7 touches for your brand to stick in the mind of someone that you're trying to reach online. Last click doesn't take this into account and really forgets this when it's attributing revenue across different channels. So as we're moving away from click, we really want to use contributors and conversion paths to highlight monetary value of those misassigned view-through conversions. What it's saying is you're really going to want to look at all of the different paths that your users are viewing your ads online in, whether that's a Google versus a site like an ESPN or something, and then seeing your ad in an email, you're really going to want to take all of those into account as you're viewing these last clicks. And then once again, according to Smart Insights, only a fraction of these users are clicking, so it's giving you that impartial view. And that's because some of these channels, as I mentioned before, like search, are direct, or by nature more click heavy compared to display. And this really makes sense if you think about it. If you're scrolling through the New York Times reading an article, you're not trying to click out of the article. But when you are going to Google, you are purposely intending to click on one of those links, right? So that's why it would work for one platform and maybe not another. And then beyond this, here, just wanted to emphasize there is no one size fits all. Clicks are definitely not king. Actually, in our ad roll office, we had someone come in from Google and mention that they were also looking at a blended click and view through attribution model to help them really build out the way that they're attributing success for their company. So finally here, looking again at the evolution of marketing measurement, we've noticed from the click era, which I've been talking about through the duration of this presentation so far, has really come to a close at the end of the aughts, where it moved then into the KPI era, where people were looking to meet certain KPI metrics. And from today on, we'll be moving into what we call the impact era, where it's tying marketing to revenue with deep insights in the journey and a lot of data beyond just certain KPIs. So businesses, once they're looking at this impact era, are really starting to see the value in having one single customer view that's helping complete the customer journey in their mind, so they understand which channels are effectively impacting their bottom line the most, right? So you'll be able to see which touch points people are actually looking at your ads online, which touch points are getting people to click through with that impact era single look. And that's something that people are moving on to as we move forward into this new era of attribution online. So once you do this, the important reason you're doing it is because it shows you this full view of people shopping in more ways than ever before. So here's number 56 average retail consumer touch points from intro to sale. That's a ton, right? That's almost 60 times that your consumer might see your brand from first touch until they actually buy online. So it's really important when you're looking at the attribution model to make sure you're not only taking into account one of those channels who might be driving in business for your company, but to make sure that you have a holistic view of everything together there to really give you that great insight into the customer journey that you have. So what does this mean? It means that it's really important for marketers to adapt their marketing measurement now. 60% of everyday transactions around the world are digital. I know this is only going to keep going up over time. However, 44% of marketers are still using last click attribution. However, there is no correlation between click-through rate and purchase intent. So there is definitely a disconnect here with the majority of everyday transactions happening online, but nearly 50% of people still looking at it from only a one-channel, one-click perspective. There definitely needs to be a better way to take all of those different touch points into account and understand where your marketing dollars are going and which platforms they're supporting. So where does attribution come into play with this? Attribution helps you do that. The more evolved your attribution model is, the more touch points it takes into place, the better it is going to be at the better you're going to be able to be at really understanding your marketing alignment. So we're looking at quick attribution history here. Attribution is without a doubt not an old topic, and definitely something that marketers have been concerned about for decades. If you can see here, there's an attribution theory and advertiser credibility journal from 1974. This quote down here: "Half the money I spend in advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half." That's a really famous quote. Obviously, this is just continuing to show that attribution is definitely something that's been on the top and the forefront of marketers' minds for decades now. But again, it's incredibly complex. so many different channels, different complexity of marketing and distribution of marketing budgets across all of those different channels. So it's really hard to understand where you should be investing more or where you should cut the investment. That's the goal of attribution, is helping you understand where you should spend more and where you should cut that investment. So we're looking here. When we were working out our attribution, which we've been continuously doing for quite a while now, we wanted to look and see how important it was for marketers to have attribution, have like a really great attribution model, and how often they thought about attribution on a day-to-day basis. And what we saw is that it was actually growing in importance for them rather than staying stagnant, or rather than being something that they didn't necessarily want to focus on. So as you can see here, cross-channel marketing and attribution is the biggest case that marketers expect to take up their time and resources in 2016. And if we move beyond that, asked again in 2018, which use cases you expect will most occupy your time, attention, and resources, cross-channel measurement attribution is again #1, and it actually moved up a few percentage points. So even more marketers now are incredibly focused on this and making sure that it's going to be something that's correct for their business, so they can show the value of the work they're doing online. So why are we seeing 44% of those marketers not still staying on last click, or not sure what to do about their attribution? We wanted to find that out as well. We noticed that a lot of them feel that there's insufficient availability, functionality of supporting technology. So a lot of people felt, yes, attribution is important, we get that, but we don't think that there's a sufficient technology for us to be able to understand all of these different touch points. And one alarming thing that we notice is that this has actually gone up year over year from 2017 to 2018 to now 50% of marketers are really unsure how technology can help them within this measurement and to understand their attribution correctly. So here's just a selection of quotes that we've seen from clients. They didn't want to necessarily be reliant on a single vendor, or vice versa, they were too reliant on a single vendor to be able to switch over. Lack of time, knowledge, or tech to be able to do it. And then overall, just the big one here is that most marketers know that this is a problem. It's just incredibly hard for them to find a solution for that. We see client insights here. One of our clients said our target customers' age range stays the same, but their savviness and behavior with online shopping continues to grow and change over time. We're really needing a partner that can truly get this, or a technology that can understand this and change with the growing times. So again, it's just really about finding that right solution and the model that fits perfect for their business. So just, really hitting this home, marketers are eager to invest more money and or resources, but feel that they lack the tools and internal expertise. So with that in mind, really, what model would be right for your business, or would be right for your specific campaigns that you're running online? So for attribution, there's a few things that you want to take into account when assessing a model. You want to make sure that in a multi-channel world, it is effectively measuring the impact of your dollars online, that you're taking into account all of those different channels while you're doing it. You're also going to want to make sure that you have a reporting structure in place that is clear and concise and can effectively show you how those dollars are being spent, and then what direct effect your marketing is having to helping your business grow. And then also, it should help you allocate your marketing budgets, right? So it should be incredibly optimizable as well, and should be very easy for you to continuously move that budget around to the channels that are working best for your business. So types of attribution here that we're running into, there are 3 main types that we usually talk about here: rule-based click only, rule-based click and view, which is also known as a blended attribution model, and then a data-driven model. So just a quick background: an attribution model is the rule or a set of rules that determines how credit for sales and conversions are assigned to the different touch points along that conversion path, right? I think what we come in contact with most here would be the first one, the rule-based click-only model. And I think this is because this is what Google Analytics uses and what so many people use because they use Google Analytics. And here we see a plethora of different attribution models, but the main ones are the last interaction or last touch point. In this case, in this model, the last touch point or the direct channel would receive 100% of the credit for the sale. This is quite a common one, but definitely not the most effective one at understanding how your dollars are being spent across the entire web, because it only takes into account that one last direct channel. There's the last non-direct click attribution model, in which case all direct traffic for this will be ignored, and 100% of the credit will actually, the 100% of that credit for that sale will actually go to the last channel that the customer clicked through before converting. So in this case, this would be something like email. It would go completely to the email channel. Google has a last click Google ads, which is, obviously clicking on that Google ad would receive all the credit. First interaction or the first touch point, which we very rarely see, but that would be when the first interaction in a series of touch points that a converter takes would get 100% of the credit. Linear, which is one of the more popular ones, which would be would share equal credit across all of the touch points, so each one gets equal credit for that sale. And then a time decay model. This model is when touch points closest in time to the sale or conversion get most of the credit. So when you're looking at these models, it'll be a bar graph essentially stepping up in height. And the closer you get to the sale, then obviously that touch point will get more and more credit for a conversion. The reasoning behind this is usually that something, an ad that someone saw 3 weeks ago probably isn't staying in their mind as much as one that they saw yesterday. However, this can also leave out, this can leave out a whole bunch of data, and that, oftentimes one platform will be the initiator in getting someone interested in your brand. But if that's their first touch point every time that they are driven to a conversion, it would actually get less credit, and you wouldn't be able to understand that it's actually one platform that is really effectively getting people interested in your brand and driving them to your site. So there are pluses and minuses to the time decay as well. And then lastly, a big one they have in the click-based would be position-based attribution model. And this is where 40% of the credit is going to be assigned to each the first and last interaction that a brand has, and then the remaining 20% of the credit is distributed evenly in the middle. So going back to my first example here, this attribution model would better tell you if one platform is initially getting someone interested in your brand, and then also tell you the one that's quite often closing them and driving them to that final sale, while giving fewer touch points in the middle. So that's the first one. There's also rule-based click and view. We refer to this as a blended model here. This was when people take into account those clicks, but they also take into account views of ads, which I know can be scary for a lot of people that we talk to. But view through conversions should be counted differently, depending on the behavior they are meant to measure, and the buying cycles, depending on the behavior that they are meant to measure, just because they're not necessarily going to be interacted with in the same way that you would if you click at them. So actually, our data shows that retail tends to convert more quickly than B2B, which suggests that overall view-through windows should be longer for B2B campaigns than for retail campaigns. And indeed, we see that practice broadly validated in the average windows used by our 20,000 advertisers. So something that we really notice is that changing these look-back windows, which are the windows in which you are allowing credit for an ad to drive a conversion, will actually help us better understand the sales cycle for B2B versus retail clients, and is what makes view-through conversions so important for us, right? So important for a bunch of different people's campaigns. So to count view-through conversions properly, some advertisers will take their attribution and they'll shorten that look-back window. Then some attribution windows will be extended, but each time that they do this, they're changing when and how a conversion, an ad is given credit for a conversion, and really helping themselves understand the actual time frame it takes for a normal user to convert once they view ads, once they view your ads, which is really great. Another approach would be, beyond just shorting it, which we feel a lot of people do, would be to keep it a lot longer, but to use a discounted percentage when valuing view-through conversions. For example, an advertiser might count a view-through conversion for 30 days, right? But only count each view-through conversion at 15% rate compared to a regular click-through, because that's the ratio that they're noticing a view-through conversion that they've learned through testing had an impact on their actual campaign. So that would be one way, beyond just shortening the look-back windows or elongating the look-back windows, is to give them different conversion rates. And by doing that, you can really help understand. By doing that, you can really test the impact that all of your ads are having on your campaign, while including views in that as well, because they really do help and they really get people interested in your brand.
Elliot, I think yeah, I think the screen kind of froze. Yeah, it's working fine now.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry there about that. So features of a good solution that we want here, these are the biggest features that you want to look for in a good solution. One, like we've been talking, it should be beyond click. Should definitely be relatively painless to integrate with your current systems. That I would say is probably one of the least important of the features of a good solution. If you're willing to put the work in to implement a good blended solution, then it that will pay you out in dividends in the end, in the long run. You definitely want time to results to be a feature of good solution. You don't want to take it forever to integrate this, to initiate this with your brand. You want to deliver results within just a few weeks. It should be affordable. This definitely shouldn't be spending all the money you have to understand how your campaigns are performing, but something that you can really, that will just help you optimize your campaigns. Definitely data driven, of course. You should be looking at how your ads are performing from there, and then be extremely transparent, which is I know extremely important for a lot of us who have to report on the results of our campaigns. You really want to be able to go in there and look at how they're performing on a minute by minute, second by second basis. So transparency is going to be huge there. Additionally, these are the good solutions. Bad solutions that you really don't want to take into account for this would be, just looking at this, you wouldn't want that disconnected data. You wouldn't want it not to operate well across channels or across platforms, because that would be completely counterintuitive to setting up an appropriate attribution model. Within that, you wouldn't want a partial customer view. You definitely want it all to be unified together. You'd really want to make sure that when you're looking at these campaigns, you're able to look at them on an ad by ad, campaign by campaign basis to help you optimize to the ads that are performing best for your customers, and then within that, personalize the ads that you're sending them to help ensure that they're really going to interact with your brand and come back and convert. Lastly, you want to get away from manual orchestration as much as possible, and make sure that what the data is showing you is helping you turn off or switch in ads as needed, but also that it's running on its own and really optimizing to make sure that it's taking advantage of the platforms that are performing the best for your business. So those are going to be hugely important for you, and the features of a solution that are really going to help you understand your marketing attribution and where your dollars are being spent online. So quick summary here of kind of the key learnings that we have. So we discussed before, the industry has evolved into the impact era. We're measuring as many touch points as possible, helps optimize and drive conversions. If we're thinking back, you want to get everything from desktop to mobile to social media to publisher sites all in one place, and really help understand how your customers are moving about online until they convert with you. Again, many businesses understand the evolve space, but do not know how to determine the value of these touch points or the right technology to use for this insight. Again, it's really about just making sure you check all the features of a good solution, and that it's something that can integrate with what you're using well, and will show you that customer journey all the way from first touch to last conversions. And this is something that you can find in your dashboard here, which should really combine that impression or click data. That impression data would simply be those view-through conversions, so that can provide full insight into the journey that your customers have, and then it will show you the universe of online data and campaign activity that led to that conversion. Just something that not a ton of vendors do, but is something that definitely vendors are moving towards. The dashboard that you have should be able to should be leveraged to drive conversions toward a full customer view and away from last click. So this is just going back into the transparency of the data here, really making sure that the dashboard is showing you everything that you need in order to effectively optimize your campaigns. And then you should also be focused on assigning credit where it's due, focusing on that entire customer journey and evolving the attribution model that you have for your business as technology and digital marketing continues to change. Again, all of these will flow into our types of attribution, our three main types of attribution that I discussed. The rule-based click only, which I would say would be a little bit more antiquated one. The click and view, which is something that a lot of people are currently using and definitely still something that's out there in the market. And then I think the future, what we're moving towards, which would be the data-driven one, the attribution, then that's the attribution model that's really helping you optimize how your campaigns are performing online, giving you recommendations for changing that, and doing it on almost instantaneous basis to really help you take advantage of online advertising. And lastly, all of this together is a huge opportunity, for you to make sure that you're unifying, collecting, pulling together all of the information about your online campaigns to ensure that you are performing as effectively as possible. So for that is the main part of my presentation for now. Know if we wanted to move it into a Q&A quickly?
Yeah, I think we can open the Q&A for questions. I have already started to get a couple of questions, but as usual, I'm going to ask my question first. So Elliot wanted to know if there's a test and learn approach towards setting up an attribution model, which maybe smaller businesses can use. Because I realize that there's a lot of investment which comes while setting up and choosing an attribution model. So can you discuss a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think the test and learn approach should be something that every marketer continuously does for their attribution model. I think there is no absolutely perfect attribution model. All we can really do is get as close to possible. And the way you get as close to possible is trying to expand your attribution model to taking in as many touch points as possible, and then understanding which of those touch points are appearing a lot in all of your marketing campaigns, which ones seem to be constantly there when you're actually leading to a conversion, and then testing the amount of money that you funnel into those different platforms or those campaigns that are running through different vendors, whether it's programmatic or SEO, to understand how they're actually affecting the sales that are taking place for your business, right? So it would be testing everything from a programmatic vendor like an AdRoll to see how they're incrementally affecting sales for your business versus a Google, or going and doing only Facebook, things like that. It's really about constantly testing all of the different platforms together.
Awesome. So we have another question coming from Kristen. Kristen asked us that, do you have any specific advice for companies that do not use digital transactions? How do you tie back sales that come over the phone? So maybe we can take the restaurant example where somebody can order food over the phone. So how we can kind of, build an attribution model for that?
Yeah, that's quite tough, and honestly, that's something that we work on constantly here, and something that my digital marketing manager is much better at than I am. I will say, when we do offline and online campaigns together, we really work to tie those campaigns back to a unique URL. A lot of this would be in actual literature that we would put out, but we'll have a unique passcode or a unique URL on a piece of literature that we give out into the world at a conference event, wherever that might be. And then when visitors come to that online database, we're able to see, okay, how many customers are actually being affected by these campaigns, right? So if we were to put $100 behind a campaign to drive people back to our site, and we gave them a specific URL to do that or a specific passcode to do that, we would then be able to see, okay, we drove 50 people. This is how much we're getting for that spend. This is how many of them are actually converting. So a lot of it is really tying that offline back to online sales for us.
Great. We have another question coming from Shivam. Shivam wants to know which are the tools which can help businesses in terms of building an attribution model for themselves and in terms of helping them choose basically which is the best model for them.
Yeah, you can pick and choose within your dashboard. AdRoll actually has a dashboard ourselves, which is really great at helping marketers understand, which attribution model is best for them. Something that you can sign up for today. It doesn't cost anything. You can have your free account at app.adroll.com. Other than that, there are a whole bunch of other tools out there that are free. To marketers, as long as they're putting money behind spending, behind advertising, that can have attribution models in them. That being said, sometimes it's really important to make sure that you're checking to see what tracking and attribution capability these tools actually have, because some of them are only able to track within their platform, which is called platform direct tracking, which wouldn't be great, right? Because it would only tell you how people are interacting within that one sphere instead of across the entire web. So one thing you really want to make sure you do is ensure that you're getting those insights across the entire web in kind of a holistic view of everything instead of keeping it into one platform direct.
That's great. Another question is coming from Andrew. Andrew wants to know how we can get internal buy-in for attribution, as there's a lot of operation related activities which happens at the time of adopting a model, as it affects your workflows and whatnot. So how can we get stakeholders buy-in to agree in terms of using an attribution?
Yeah, I mean, one way that we've always been doing it, at least for stakeholders, is we'll tie it back to revenue. I think that's one of the easiest ways to do it, and it's really just communicating with them like, hey, there is a chance we are not properly understanding, how our ads are performing online. Because we might not properly understand it, this means we're not able to optimize our campaigns to the channels or the programs that are most effective for our business, which means for every campaign we're running, we could be losing money, right? So, even though attribution measurement might initially disrupt some, internal marketing team programs that you have, at the end of the day, what it's really doing is helping you, spend less money for greater results, and that's going to be better for the business, no matter what. So that's typically how we like to kind of categorize it and approach it, because it really does affect, your bottom line and the revenue that you're seeing coming into your site.
That's a sound answer. Another question we are getting from Julia. Julia wants to know, is there a way to get better at multi-channel attribution for online and offline marketing efforts, especially for e-commerce business?
Is there a way to get better at it? I would say we have a lot of information on our site. Actually, if you visit adroll.com on multi-touch attribution, I have a few other webinars on there as well. Really great resources to help make sure that people are setting up their accounts. A lot of vendors like AdRoll, for example, will help walk you through the process of setting up your account, and then really work with you to help you understand what attribution model is best for you, by helping kind of just dive into all the data that you have, looking at your look back windows, looking to see when people convert, and then really working hand in hand with the clients to help them understand how much weight they should give to views versus clicks within their dashboard, and really help optimize that attribution model to get things flowing.
Great. Another question is coming from Ben. Ben wants to take your opinion on how attribution models are different for B2B and B2C companies, especially in the SaaS ecosystem.
Yeah. What we notice, at least with B2B SaaS, is that the sales cycle is a lot longer. So when you're figuring out, the attribution model that's right for you, it's really helpful to take a deep look at the look back windows that you'd set up. A lot of people will create really, really short look back windows. And again, a look back window is the amount of time that you sign credit to a conversion to an ad, right? So a lot of people will keep really, really short look back windows for B2B SaaS companies. And this doesn't really help tell you how your ads are affecting purchases online, just because the buying cycle tends to be quite a bit larger. So for B2B SaaS, I would say it's really important to look at those look back windows and make sure they're effectively taking into account the entire picture of how long it takes someone to purchase your product, especially if that's a longer time. Whereas for retail, it could just be a few days or a flash sale or something like that, where it'd be a much shorter look back window and much shorter amount of time.
Great. We have a couple of more questions. Let's take two more. One question is coming from Money, and he's asking that how to kind of test and understand that you have a flexible or an adaptable attribution model. Is there a way to kind of build one?
As long as you're testing your attribution model, I think at least it will by definition be pretty flexible, right? Because you're constantly working with it to help understand how your ads are performing online. I think what are generally the unflexible type of models would be the ones that you would get just handed to you, like I discussed before, the ones that were just last touch click or first touch click, or even time decay a little bit. Those are pretty rigid models who automatically give a certain percentage of credit to each touch point within the path to conversion. I think the more flexible models will be the ones where you're constantly testing how long your look back windows are, which platforms that you're serving your ads on, when you're constantly moving in and out, different ad creatives, and just overall looking at performance. I think that's what's really going to help you better understand.
Great. Let's take one more question, and this question is coming from Kristen again. She wants to understand, is there a way we can account organic interaction in our attribution model apart from whatever paid attribution we discussed about?
Yeah, so a lot of these would be for paid attribution. One way that I really like to take into account organic attribution, it would again be by using URLs, and really just make sure that I'm putting urchin tracking modules, UTM codes on them, which are just something that you can create from most tracking sites. Google's famous for creating UTM codes as well. And what this does is just helps understand the total overall traffic that's coming to your site. That's organic, and then that's a way that you can really back that into your inorganic traffic that's coming to your site, which is something that you can see through the paid ads that you're running as well.
Awesome. With that, let us wrap this session. Do you have any last thought to share, Elliot?
No, I just wanted to say thank you so much, everyone, for joining. If you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me. I'm Elliot Moore on LinkedIn. Reach out to AdRoll with anything. We have people monitoring social media, so we'll be sure to get back with any questions that you have from there as well.
Great. Thanks, Elliot, for taking out the time to come here and share your experience with us.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the attendees to joining in and attending the session. We'll come back again on 4th of December with a brand new webinar with Conversion Excel to discuss some amazing insights from the world of conversion optimization. Till then, keep optimizing.